We're also talking about why the number of global billionaires has doubled since the financial crisis. So look, the story is we had the financial crisis, then we found that the numbers of billionaires in the world has doubled. Why? Jonathan Davis is an economist, wealth manager, also a very good friend of the programme. Inichi, Jonathan.
Hello, Simon.
I saw this story and I thought of you.
Well, I'm not a billionaire.
No, I know. But I want to know how it is we can join this party, because there will be, in my lifetime, I'm sure, another crisis, another recession, another setback financially. What are we all doing wrong?
Well, it's not a case of what we're not doing wrong. It's what the ultra-rich are doing right, and they're getting the help of the central banks of the world, the Federal Reserve in the US, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank, etc. And what we've seen since 2008, the Great Recession, as they call it, we've seen 3 lots of quantitative easing, effectively printing money by the US Federal Reserve, and coincidentally that happened.
They just stopped that, haven't they, today?
Well, that's exactly right, as I was going to say. Coincidentally, just ended today. But the point is, in the last 5.5 years, the stock market has literally trebled. You'll find that many stocks have gone up 5 or 6 times. And of course, property in London, for example, has gone through the stratosphere. And it's all because of various governments and central banks' policies.
So it's fiddling with the market. It's not natural.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
It always helps the super rich. It doesn't particularly help everyone else.
Right. So if they had let the markets to their own devices, you could argue that there would be fewer billionaires, but would we be in a more precarious state, or would we be better off if they didn't fiddle and meddle?
That's an excellent question, and my answer to that is for an extra year or maybe 2, although it's hard to say exactly, it would have been difficult for the bulk of us, no question. However, you're absolutely correct, there would be far fewer ultra rich, and there would be more money shared out amongst the rest of us. And now, of course, it's now 6 years after the Great Recession. It was 2008. If capitalism was allowed to run its course and businesses, aka the failed banks, had gone bust, then we would now be in a situation where globally we'd all be growing very strongly, and you and I and most of your listeners would be doing far better than generally people are. And as I say, the cake would be shared amongst more people.
The fear now then, presumably, certainly in America if quantitative easing has stopped, but also maybe here when we find, because we still have quantitative easing, don't we, in this country?
Well, they're not doing it at the moment, but it's certainly on the table, and it will happen again when, for example, at some point when the stock markets turn down, I can tell you within weeks or a few months they'll bring it back on the table again.
Right. So is this a sign? You can't suggest this to individual listeners, and I know you may not want to suggest it in this specific case, but if we take a separate case than this, when you are aware that governments will begin to print money, and when you are aware that there is a slump happening, that is the time to invest if you were going to, and you've got to make very clear decisions and you've got to be very careful and get advice. But if you were going to invest in shares, that is the time, not when you think the world is doing incredibly well.
Yes, in general terms, the greatest investors in history have said, buy when there's, quote, blood on the streets, unquote, not literally, and do not buy when everything's going and roaring ahead. That's the time not to buy. Of course, there's always perhaps still further stock market growth when everything's roaring ahead. But of course, if it's already soared, it's closer to when it's going to turn down.
And just lastly, Jonathan,
if it's already crashed, then that's the time to get in quick.
If you know all this, why are you not a billionaire?
Well, of course, you have to start with an awful lot of money to get to those sort of levels. But, yeah, we do okay.
Well, that's because we know where you shop.
Yes.
He's a discount supermarket man. Listen, Jonathan, if people want to find more about you, how can they do it?
I would invite people to look at our website, which is jonathandaviswm.com.
Wonderful. It's good to talk to you. Thank you. We'll welcome you into the studio soon as well, I'm sure. Jonathan Davis, economist and wealth manager, on the reasons why the numbers of global billionaires have doubled since the financial crisis, and potentially how we can all get a little bit of it. But of course, no, it's not as simple as perhaps we once thought. Did that surprise you, Joanne, that the news that since